My name is Camille. I presented with FND after a surgery that I had on April 14th. Afterwards, when I was waking up from the anesthetic, I presented with seizure-like symptoms. And then I was admitted to Boston Children's Hospital, where they diagnosed me with functional neurological disorder.
Functional Neurological Disorder, or FND, was previously known as conversion disorder because clinicians thought it was caused by trauma being converted into physical symptoms in the body. In actuality, FND is caused by abnormal functioning of brain networks that interrupt how the brain sends signals to the body.
It presents in various different ways, whether you have functional tremors, gait disturbances, non-epileptic seizures, drop attacks,
trouble with sensation, trouble with pain out of proportion to any injury that you've had.
With FND, you never know what today's going to bring. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
I have severe headaches. Sometimes I have blurry vision. I have cognitive fog with memory loss and confusion.
Some symptoms that I still struggle with are functional seizures, limb weakness, brain fog, migraines, tics.
Many others that I know I'm forgetting. Memory, that's one of the problems too.
FND can take so many different presentations, and as a parent, this meant that I was constantly adapting and trying to figure out how to care for her and navigate care at the same time.
We now know that there are some certain structural and connectivity changes that are happening within the networks of the brain that aren't purely psychological.
But we now know that stress is not necessary for this diagnosis. It can be present, and it can be something that kind of elicits the initial onset, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
We're really starting to understand a little bit more about functional neurological disorder, and I love hearing about all of the new studies that are really debunking some of the myths that we initially thought. There are now these fMRI studies that are showing that certain areas of the brain aren't communicating in the way that they used to.
An fMRI, or functional MRI machine, which looks at what different parts of the brain are doing and what parts are active during certain activities, you would see that there actually is a signal in the part of their brain responsible for having pain.
At the hospital where I was diagnosed initially, I was told that if I just calmed down, the seizures would stop. One doctor told me to stop moving my head and got really aggravated that I wouldn't stop, and so he kind of grabbed my head to still it, and when he did that, my whole body just started to jerk totally uncontrollably. I was practically falling off the bed.
One paramedic decided to prove a point to the other paramedics by putting a breathing tube down my daughter's throat to show that she wasn't unresponsive. And in fact, they laughed when she gagged because it was like basically somebody choking you. And then they accused her of faking her symptoms. She remembered every word of it, and she remembered the sound of their laughter, but she couldn't respond. We were told to avoid stress, keep life as normal as possible. How can you keep life as normal as possible when your child is having 15 seizures a day? Soon our daughter started to lose hope. She worried that nobody had a plan. And she was right. Nobody had a plan. Nobody knew what to do.
For resources that are available, honestly, not a whole lot. It's really hard to find resources. When I was first diagnosed, they told me to do cognitive behavioral therapy, but I could not find a therapist that was familiar with FND to do that with. So the cognitive behavioral therapy was not helpful for me.
I wish care was more accessible. I wish that I hadn't have had to leave the state. I'm so thankful that my insurance did cover me going to another state, to another facility. But I can't imagine living somewhere where they just give you this diagnosis and kind of a pat on the back and say, okay, this is what you have, good luck.
Most people that I have encountered in the medical profession do not know what to do with FND patients. They don't seem to understand FND. And one doctor will say I need to see a neurologist. The neurologist says I need to see a psychiatrist, and kind of back and forth. So it can be pretty frustrating.
I am in the gray line of being disabled, but not being disabled enough.
I would never wish FND on anyone, but I will admit that there were days when I wished some of the providers, and I would say particularly in the emergency department, walked and lived in my shoes for just one day to see what it was like to live with FND and see someone that you love so much suffer from FND.
When I started college, I really struggled to manage my FND symptoms. I had a lot of seizures and I experienced a lot of stigma because of it, with people saying they were like scared to hang out with me in case I had a seizure. But I have found people who love me not despite my seizures, but regardless of them. I have faced a lot of stigma and misinformation by misinformed nurses and doctors, but honestly, it has gotten a lot better since when I was first diagnosed, and I've seen a lot of progress in the healthcare industry.
Learning to recognize what makes my system feel overloaded, overstimulated, and overwhelmed.
I use a lot of different kind of aids, so compression aids that help with pain. Got my cane.
Talking with others who are also living with FND makes a huge difference to the quality of my life. It really does, because sometimes it just feels like you're alone in all of this. Your life kind of shrinks a little bit.
I see a therapist once a week, and I work with her. We do a mix of cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and talk therapy. Pretty much anything that I need during that session, she's open to doing with me.
I did do physical therapy and occupational therapy.
I do neurofeedback. I work with plasticity centers.
We have neuroplasticity, the ability to reconnect and change how things are talking to each other in the brain in real time in response to the things that we're experiencing and learning.
So I'm currently followed by many providers. I have 2 therapists, a psychiatrist, a neurologist, a cardiologist, a urologist, and an acupuncturist.
I think there's a tremendous opportunity to improve FND care. FND is one of the most expensive conditions out there, with the extraordinary amounts of testing and rehospitalizations. So there is a use case, beyond the human case, there's a business case for improving FND care.
I have hope that someday people like me in the rare condition of being paralyzed from functional or neurological disorder will be able to be in the disabled community without the stigma of hysteria behind the diagnosis.
In pediatrics, my initial goal is to try to make sure that they can get back to school, they can get back to their extracurricular activities, and are they functional? Are they getting themselves dressed? Are they able to brush their teeth? Can they get in and out of the bathtub?
I hope that I meet individuals over the next 10 years who are working with neurologists and meeting with practitioners who affirm and believe them, that this is not purely all in their head a psychological condition, that this is truly a change in the brain network.
I had no idea what FND was. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was barely even aware. I couldn't talk. And now I'm here. And I'm back at school and I'm thriving. The message that I want to share is it's really hard. FND is a really hard disorder. And no one's doubting that. But I think we need those success stories of people that have pushed through. And that's what I hope this documentary and my story does for people.